at Union Baptist Church. And thank you to Senator Doris Turner and Representative Sue Scherer for hosting us here in their districts. I also want to recognize Speaker Chris Welch, who is doing an amazing job and no doubt will put a couple years on his life over the next 2 weeks as we finish session. I want to also recognize Representatives Carol Ammons, Leader Ammons, Representative Barbara Hernandez, Representative Lakeisha Collins. Thank you all for your partnership and in joining us. Earlier this morning, I stood with House Leader Delia Ramirez, who is here, Senate Leader Omar Aquino, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, Illinois Housing Development Authority Executive Director Kristen Faust, and Illinois Department of Human Services Secretary Grace Ho, as I signed the COVID-19 Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program Act into law, allowing Illinois to expand rental assistance by $1.5 billion, nearly 4 times the amount that was available last year. The Illinois Rental Assistance Program will ensure that 120,000 more household renters will see relief, with more renters potentially being touched in the future. Any eligible resident who rents their home, is behind on payments, and experienced financial hardship in the pandemic is eligible to apply for up to $25,000 of rental assistance paid directly to their housing provider or landlord. Rent assistance is only one piece of today's announcement. Later this summer, we'll provide an additional $400 million on top of the $1.5 billion for renters for mortgage assistance. That means struggling homeowners can get relief too. And that's not all. I'm also pleased to announce today that Illinois will be replenishing our utilities assistance program, which includes help with housing, utilities, and legal assistance. Secretary Ho is here today to speak more about that in a few moments. As a reminder, to date, more than 260,000 households have received $280 million in benefits through DCEO's utility assistance programs alone, and with additional funding available through those programs and the DHS counterparts, thousands more families will be able to access relief. Last year, amidst one of the most difficult years of our lifetimes, the Illinois Housing Development Authority designed, implemented, and launched one of the largest emergency housing assistance programs in the nation in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We were the best in the nation at getting relief into the pockets of landlords and homeowners in 2020. By delivering assistance more efficiently and quickly, we were able to make the difference for our residents when it mattered most. Between the emergency rental assistance and the emergency mortgage assistance programs, totaling over $329 million, Illinois kept over 56,000 households from losing their homes during the pandemic. That rental assistance alone reached over 800 renters here in Sangamon County, making this a safer, stronger community for all. Lakeisha Purchase, a housing provider who helped 2 tenants receive ERA funds in 2020, is here to speak of her experience with the program. Of course, we want to make sure that you know that the need is far greater than the number of families that we were able to help last year. That's why today's announcement is so meaningful. Tens of thousands of families across Illinois will receive substantial assistance to help overcome the financial crisis the pandemic brought to their lives. I'd like to ask the media to help us in one particular way to help spread the word. Renters in need of assistance can work with their landlords to go online and apply right now at illinoishousinghelp.org. I'm going to repeat that. It's illinoishousinghelp.org. In line with our recovery and with this new round of assistance, we're planning to end our eviction moratorium in August of this year and we will work with other stakeholders to begin an orderly, gradual phase out of the moratorium over the next few months, with more details to come. Our 2020 rental assistance program is a testament to how good government can make a life-changing difference for people when our dollars follow our values. I'm proud that the Illinois Rental Payment Program will allow us to take that impact to new heights for thousands of Illinoisans. With that, I am very pleased to call up to the podium Lakeisha Purchase to share her story. Lakeisha?
Thank you, Governor Pritzker, and to all of our elected leaders and advocates gathered here today. My name is Lakeisha Purchase, a Springfield native, a Capital Township trustee, and a housing provider for more than 20 families who live in apartments, duplexes, and single-family homes that I rent to in this area. I'm so thankful that Governor Pritzker and Ida for the rental program. 2 of my tenants were approved last year for the funds, and we're hoping that many more are approved during this round. When COVID first hit, it was not long before a financial hardship had hit my tenants, and I can tell you today that that is still a struggle. I have one tenant who has not been able to pay rent since April of 2020, when she lost her job. Another tenant with 2 small kids who was working and going to nursing school to get a better paying job, and she had to quit school to stay at home with her kids when they had went to the home-based remote learning. Another tenant was hospitalized with COVID for over a month and a half and came home in need of near daily care for months after. After so much missed work, now his boss can only offer him 2 days of work a week, and he's 9 months behind right now. A number of people have been paying $100 here, $250 there, but the consistent monthly payments are just out of reach right now for so many. And I have to stay on top of maintenance, paying the mortgage, utilities, property taxes that's coming up, and you find that you're $17,000 to $18,000 behind. Now, how do you play catch up with a number like that? You just don't bounce back overnight. My tenants want to pay their bills, they want to get back to their lives, and they want to get back to their jobs and a chance to just think about a better way in the future. Having up to $25,000 per tenant available for back rent and this summer is definitely going to make a huge difference for so many families, including mine. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you for making this possible. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Lakeisha, for sharing your personal story about how your tenants have been personally affected during this pandemic. It is the perfect testimony as to why rental assistance is so very important. I want to thank you, Governor Pritzker, for your compassionate and visionary leadership. A day like today is just another example of your dedicated commitment to lifting up every single community here in Illinois. It's awesome to be here today as well with so many strong advocates for housing justice and so many others, which the governor has already acknowledged. And in the interest of time, I'll just say thank you for your leadership. It's always an honor to work alongside of you. I do, of course, want to acknowledge my friends and former colleagues of the Illinois General Assembly, including Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch, and I especially want to lift up the chief sponsors of House Bill 2877, Leader Delia Ramirez, who is here, and Leader Omar Aquino in his absence. You listened to the urgent pleas of residents during this pandemic, and you put what you heard into action. And now the COVID-19 Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program is now the law of the land here in Illinois. Thank you for your powerful advocacy, and I'm especially proud of all of the members of the Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus who continuously diligently pursued justice, equity, and opportunity for all Illinoisans, as well as the many other members of the General Assembly who worked so hard to get us to this day. So, when I think about this question, how many of you know where you're going to sleep tonight? And we know that there are many in our state who don't know the answer to that question, or who have felt throughout this pandemic that decision of where they were going to live or being able to have those resources were put in jeopardy. We know that having a roof over your head is important, but it's not just about where you sleep. Having a roof over your head is also about having a place that you can call home, a place that you can feel settled, a place that you can help take care of your children and provide for their needs. All of this is something that has been put in jeopardy by this pandemic. We know that people were forced to pivot and find a way to pay rent and mortgages while struggling with the stress of trying to keep themselves and their family members healthy. And sometimes the money just wasn't there. So many, all across the state and disproportionately in communities of color, told us, you know what, we're just trying to make it. Well, we're here today because we not only want you to make it, we want you to thrive. And thanks to this federal funding and the signing of House Bill 2877 into law, more families will be able to do just that. As I often say, housing is health care, and being housing insecure takes an enormous toll on one's physical health, but it also takes a toll on one's mental health. And it's not just about the adults, it's also about our children who struggle when there's housing instability as well. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and there's no better time that I can think of to let Illinoisans know that relief is here for the stress and anxiety of facing an eviction in the midst of a global pandemic. You all deserve to be safe, and you deserve to be your healthiest selves. And so I too urge all Illinoisans that are eligible to apply for this rental assistance. Thank you again to everyone who has made today possible. It's now my pleasure to introduce an amazing leader who I'm proud to also call friend, Speaker of the House, Emanuel Chris Welch.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor for the wonderful introduction. Thank our governor for calling us here today for this important occasion. But thank several members of the House of Representatives who were really champions and warriors who made this day happen. Leader Delia Ramirez, Representative Barbara Hernandez, Representative Lakeisha Collins, and Leader Carol Ammons are here today because they made this day happen. When I tell you from the first day on the job, they were, Speaker, we got to get this done. Speaker, we got to get this done. And we got it done. We're here because we got it done. And I'm delighted to be here today because this really is a major, major announcement. This is the type of thing that we all sign up for. This is why we do these jobs. We are here to help working class families who have faced financial distress over this past year. COVID has been hard. People have really suffered. The pandemic was a once-in-a-century crisis that required a once-in-a-century government response. And because of the warriors behind me, we have that response. It was not easy. It was not perfect. But I'm glad that leaders in the General Assembly were able to work with the governor and his team to meet the crisis at scale. Today is a major example of that. $1.5 billion, with another $400 million to come, in housing aid for families hit hardest by the pandemic. This is also exemplified by the leadership of our Assistant Majority Leader, Delia Ramirez, in passing the COVID-19 Federalist Emergency Rental Assistance Program Act. You all don't know how hard she fought to make this day happen. It literally started a year ago when we were still on the floor of the Bank of Springfield Center. I never saw a legislator fight so hard for an initiative, and I have to give her credit where credit is due. Can we give her a round of applause, please? Leader Ramirez is steadfast in her support for working class families, and I thank her for her leadership. I thank our Senate colleague, Senator Omar Aquino, for his leadership on the other side of the building, for making sure we got it done in the Senate, and of course, my friend, Senate President Don Harmon. And again, I can't thank Governor Pritzker enough for spearheading this bold package. We can pass something out of the legislature, but he still has to put his signature on it. That was an applause for the governor. Right on cue. I encourage our residents to visit IllinoisHousingHelp.org to find out more information. Please spread the word. It can help you or your family, your friends, and your coworkers. This is very important. IllinoisHousingHelp.org. We're all in this together, folks. We will all get through this pandemic together. We're almost there, and we can all begin to enjoy Illinois again very soon. Thank you all, and at this time, I'd like to bring up the Director of IDA, Director Faust. Thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of the Illinois Housing Development Authority and board and staff, I'm Kristen Faust. I'm the Executive Director, and I want to thank everybody sitting behind me and many more so much for being able to be here today and share with you the opening of the Illinois Rental Payment Program and to say thank you for making this happen. For many of us, we see the economy getting better, but that is just not true for all families in Illinois. A recent poll shows that still over 300,000 renters are not quite sure how they're going to pay next month's rent. And to make matters worse, we know communities of color are even more disproportionately and severely impacted by the health and economic impacts of COVID and housing insecurity. We want to see a recovery where no one is left behind, create an Illinois that truly serves all its people, and fair and equitable access to this rental payment program and to vulnerable families is critical to that. So at IDA, we've been working really, really hard for the last several months, working tirelessly, working with DHS, and to roll out a program that will fairly and effectively reach Illinois renters hardest hit by COVID-19. Beginning today, Illinois landlords and tenants who've experienced a loss of income due to COVID-19 pandemic can apply for the rental assistance at IllinoisHousingHelp.org. It's available to renters in all 102 counties in the state. It offers up to 15 months of assistance. It goes back all the way to June of 2020 and can go forward to August of 2021. And these funds are a grant. They do not have to be repaid. So we worked and listened to the advocates, elected officials, and others who provided their feedback. And this program, a couple of key changes, and we will not be requiring an official lease. Applicants can check the status of their application online and have that satisfaction knowing it's still there. If you are a tenant with an unresponsive landlord, there's going to be a special way for you to apply. And finally, the Illinois Rental Payment Program is available to all eligible renters in Illinois, regardless of immigration status. That's right. The assistance is not a public charge benefit. So we are accepting applications starting today. The application starts with the landlord, and then the tenant finishes it. And so we need landlords and tenants talking to each other and communicating, because there's a 4-week application window to get the application in. But if you need help with that as a renter or a landlord, we've also are working with over 60 nonprofit organizations across the state to help provide that technical assistance and maybe even mediation if the communication isn't so good with the landlord and tenant. And for a list of those organizations, you can go to ida.org. So the economic fallout caused by COVID has highlighted the fundamental role, you've heard it from all the speakers, that housing has in all of our lives in keeping families safe, stable, and healthy. Governor Pritzker has been relentless and clear that every action we take to persevere through this crisis and beyond it must include doing all that we can to create a more just and equitable state where there's opportunity for everyone. IDA is so proud to be part of this effort in rolling out the Illinois Rental Payment Program. Help is here for Illinois renters and landlords. please go to illinoishousinghelp.org to get started. And thank you. I'd now like to bring up my partner agency in this effort, Secretary Grace Ho of DHS. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kristen. I'm so pleased to be here this afternoon at the Union Baptist Church to lift up the array of programs that the state of Illinois has woven together to help residents in this community stay in their homes. We know that this community and others across central Illinois have experienced great hardships due to COVID-19, and we also know that many community members go to their trusted local leaders when they need help. The state of Illinois, our department, the Illinois Department of Human Services, has made significant targeted investments to grassroots partners to support community members in a variety of ways. Today, in partnership with IDA's Illinois Rental Payment Program, DHS is extending and expanding upon our existing investments through our Housing Help Program. We want you to know that help is here. So in addition to financial rental assistance, residents in Illinois can access case management, financial counseling, and other housing stability services that support homeless prevention. And in addition, we have created legal assistance services to educate individuals and families and to provide legal representation if they need it. We want to thank our local partner organizations like the Farm Worker and Landscaper Advocacy Project, the Illinois Migrant Council, the Immigration Project, and then Western Illinois Dreamers. These partners are pillars who proudly serve this community along with dozens of others across the state of Illinois to meet the needs of families where they are with what they need. So if you or someone you know needs help, you can find resources in your community by visiting illinoishousinghelp.org. We are committed to equitable policies and practices that focus on those most impacted by COVID-19 and to the communities most vulnerable to experiencing homelessness. I'm grateful for the opportunity to collaborate with IDA, DCEO, and others on this extraordinary effort, and I'm proud to carry out Governor Pritzker's charge to bring this opportunity to the residents of Illinois. It is my pleasure now to introduce David Wortman, who is a Deputy Director at the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Governor, for inviting me here today, and thank you to the elected officials. My name is David Wortman. I'm Deputy Director at the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Today is a lot about rent, but along with rent, residents need to be able to keep their lights on. And DCEO, we run the LIHEAP program. And since last June, we started a program called Help Illinois Families. You can go to helpillinoisfamilies.com and sign up online for LIHEAP and Community Service Block Grant to help with your utilities and other household expenses. And since last June, we have helped over 300,000 households and issued over $280 million worth of utility assistance and other household assistance. In creating Help Illinois Families, what we were trying to do was make it easier for people to access our funding and expand the funding. We also are able to serve any household, regardless of immigration status, for utility assistance and community service block grants. And I'm proud to say in the last month, with the end of the shut-off moratorium for utilities, we were able to stand up the Utility Disconnection Avoidance Program, UDAP, and we've kept over 115,000 households from having their utilities shut off by using LIHEAP funding that was available through the federal government and the state funding. So these programs are very important. We still have 2 weeks left in this program year, and we still have $30 million in funding for anyone who has not received assistance this year. So LIHEAP funding is still available, and we're ready to help anyone with those needs. So with that, I thank you very much, and I will turn it over to Representative Ramirez.
Good afternoon. My heart's still beating. I've been nervous all day. Speaker Welch and Governor Pritzker talked about the work that's gone into this moment. The amount of time, hours, cries that even I think staff at IDA and DHS and our staff helping draft legislation and prepare for these programs have gone through to make sure that we could provide assistance to people who need it the most. It's why as I stand before you this afternoon, I think about how much we've gone through in this past 15 months, how many lives we've lost, how many people have lived doubled up and tripled up. And when mom came home with COVID-19, it was just 2 days before the son, the daughter, the grandma, and everyone else living in that household became infected as well. I think about the number of people that we've lost because of this pandemic and how critical housing is to be able to help us get through this. Over a year ago, during the early days of the pandemic, I became so deeply concerned with the housing instability that would be caused by this crisis. I knew that many people were already experiencing serious housing insecurity before the pandemic and were at risk of homelessness, and that the economic instability caused by COVID-19 would only make things worse. By the end of April, 1 in 3 Illinoisans couldn't pay their rent. It brought me back to my 13 years as a staff person and then executive director of Center for Changing Lives, an organization that works with people experiencing homelessness, from parents, mothers, and their children, to men who were experiencing chronic homelessness. And it made me think about those moments of helplessness, trying to help people move from homelessness to permanent housing. And I knew that we had a responsibility to prevent homelessness for as many families as possible here in the state of Illinois. And this is why last spring, I filed an emergency housing bill to address the housing crisis caused by this pandemic. I wanted to make sure that as we were asking people to shelter in place and to stay at home so that we could stop the spread of this virus, that people were able to actually stay at home and also keep their homes. Passing this legislation has been, and trust me, they know, my absolute #1 priority over the last year. I'd say I got a couple more gray hairs as a result of that. But after thorough debate and negotiations with housing stakeholders from across our state, I am glad to be standing with you today as our COVID-19 Emergency Housing Protection Assistance Bill has been and will be signed into law. This legislation is critical to the first step in averting this housing crisis. The provisions in this bill will ensure that the federal assistance that's being administered is done so effectively and efficiently while targeting aid to those most in need. The bill provides protections to those at risk of eviction and relief to homeowners and renters at risk of losing their home, both homeowners and renters. This bill will automatically seal eviction filing through March of 2022, giving thousands of our families a clean slate after having gone through the worst of the worst during this pandemic. I want to express my deepest gratitude to the broad coalition of organizations, of constituents that wrote thousands of testimonies, I know because they were in my email inbox and I'm still seeing them. And to every single person that has championed this issue, making housing an absolute priority during this pandemic. Folks at the Shriver Center on Poverty Law, Housing Action Illinois, Lawyers Committee for Better Housing. I also want to thank our congressional delegation, especially those who fought so hard so that we could secure $1.5 billion in rent relief from Chicago to East St. Louis and everything in between. Those dollars will have saved lives and will help through the economic recovery that we are all working towards. I also want to thank every one of my colleagues, and certainly my chief co-sponsor, Representative LaPointe, Housing Chairman Gazzardi. But I also want to thank the Illinois Latino Legislative Caucus and the Illinois Black Legislative Caucus, who in January, in the wee of the night, probably around 2 in the morning, were working that roll call, making sure that we prioritize our families over other things. I also want to thank Speaker Welch. He knows me to be very persistent, and about 4 in the morning on the night before inauguration, I said to him, soon to be Speaker Welch, we need to prioritize this bill. Do you think tomorrow we can talk about the strategy to make sure that we move it as quickly as possible, maybe February of this year? And at about 4:30 in the morning, tired as he was, he said, we will continue to prioritize our community. We will make this bill a top priority. He honored his word. In the first few days of legislative session, we passed the bill in the House. Speaker Welch, thank you. Thank you for your persistence, for honoring your word, and always putting people first. Finally, I want to thank Governor Pritzker for signing this bill today. But I also want to thank you for your leadership. And I know you're behind me, so I can't do the mic in this, so you'll know I'm talking to you, though. Throughout this pandemic, you have led on this issue by taking action through executive order to make sure that people would be able to stay in their homes during the peak of this pandemic and as we entered into recovery. Let me be clear. What you did and your actions has saved thousands of lives. I know it because I've received a number of calls about what that has meant for people who were on the verge of homelessness, who had had a family member test positive, die from COVID, and what your leadership has meant to them consistently. Thank you, Governor Pritzker. I believe housing is a human right, and while we have more work to do, we will do more around housing. This bill and the emergency rental payment program launched today is a critical step in affirming this right for all Illinoisans. So I end in saying this. If you are still trying to figure out how to pay your car insurance and pay your mortgage, help is here. If you're trying to figure out how you're going to feed your children this summer and also pay your rent, or how to continue to negotiate an agreement with your landlord because you owe $13,000 in unpaid rent because you're barely going back to work, help is here. We need you to be stable because financial stability necessitates housing stability. Today is a good day. Apply, apply, apply. Thank you. And with that said, I would like to introduce my sister in the House, one of our newer members who is doing incredible work in the legislature, Representative Collins.
Hello. So I am State Representative Lakeisha Collins from the 9th House District. I wanted to start off by saying thank you to Governor Pritzker for being the trailblazer that you are. Thank you for supporting this legislation because it is so crucial to the families across the state of Illinois. I would also like to say thank you to Speaker Welch for just being a stand-up person, for being passionate, for listening to the legislators, but also just, being welcoming and opening about any issue that we come to you with. Thank you to Leader Ramirez for championing this legislation, and also thank you to Leader Ammons for, your support. She's my seatmate. I love her. And thank you to all my other colleagues who are here with me today standing in solidarity. I'm thankful to be a part of this historical moment we're in because I know personally how being behind on your rent can cause stress and anxiety of not knowing whether you and your children will have a roof over your head. Because as a former nursing home worker, I struggle to keep a roof over my children's head. And I know personally the shame you feel and the hurt of looking your children in the eyes and telling them that everything is gonna be all right while holding back tears and not knowing on the inside if it'll be okay or not. So I knew that when COVID-19 hit, families across the state of Illinois were going to struggle to keep their heads above water. So when the pandemic hit, we all knew that housing would be a top issue because it was a crisis before the pandemic, and we knew that the pandemic would shine a brighter light on the housing crisis. But today, I'm thankful for the trailblazers who worked tirelessly to make today possible. I'm so honored to serve with so many passionate human beings who understand the importance of giving reliefs to our families across the state of Illinois. This is a major shift in our housing crisis, and I know that COVID may have hit us all hard, but because we are strong together, we will bounce back like we are now to continue to meet the needs of the families across the state of Illinois. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my other colleague, Senator Turner. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm very excited to be here today so that although we have been in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic for over a year, there are still so many issues affecting our everyday lives, economically, mentally, physically, and the list goes on. And with the opening of the Illinois Rental Payment Program, Governor Pritzker is again providing yet another avenue to keep families in their home while they are experiencing financial hardship caused by the pandemic. I have to say thank you to the leaders in the House that brought this issue forward, and to Speaker Welch for championing it and moving it through. I know that that's not always an easy thing to do when you have so many different divergent issues that are coming towards you. And also to Senator Aquino for bringing it forward in the Senate, and I was very pleased to sign on as a early co-sponsor of the legislation. And I know that we talk about assistance while we are still during the pandemic, but I would be remiss if I didn't again thank Governor Pritzker for his leadership during this entire pandemic with so many divergent voices and things that were going on. He stood steadfast and made Illinois a leader in pandemic response, and we owe him a great deal of gratitude for that. He saved many lives because of it, and we are closer to being on the other side of this pandemic because of his leadership. And as we move forward, we have the housing assistance that's coming down, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the fastest and safest way for us to get to our post-pandemic life is if we encourage everyone who is eligible to be vaccinated. That's extremely, extremely important. Governor Pritzker and his leadership has made the vaccine very accessible, bringing it to your community at the very local level through partnerships with local faith-based and community-based organizations and federally qualified health centers. As a matter of fact, Union Baptist Church held a vaccination clinic right here that was very well attended. So I stand and applaud my colleagues for this legislation that they have brought forth that will keep families together, keep families in their homes, and that's major. It's monumental, but we do have to really think about how we move to the next level, how we get our children back in school, how we get families where they can gather, how we get our economy moving again. And the best way to do that is for us to be able to move around and gather together, and we do that by getting vaccinated. So right now, anyone over the age of 16 is eligible. So let's get our kids back in school, our businesses fully opened, and our families back to holding family gatherings. Do it for yourself, do it for your family, do it for your community. And I invite Representative Souchier to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Turner. I just want to thank everyone for being here and recognizing how important today is. And I noticed while I was sitting there listening to the pouring down rain on the roof, and I thought, God's right here with us, and he's telling us with God everything is possible. And so now the families that would be sleeping out in that rain have an opportunity to have a roof over their head. something that I'm going to reach out and guess that no one in this room really had to worry about that for tonight. You all know that I was a teacher for 35 years. I taught a student who lived in a car. I taught a student whose family of 6 lived in a tent. And it was very hard for me as a teacher to see that happen and feel so hopeless that there was nothing I could do to help them. It was one of the hardest moments of my life. So this bill is very meaningful to me because now when a teacher has a student like that, they can offer them a little ray of hope that it doesn't have to be like that anymore. And our government can do better than we were doing back when that happened. And this just shows me the strength and courage of the people who stand behind me. The right thing isn't always the easy thing, and this time, in my heart of hearts, I feel like we did the right thing. So thank you to everyone, and now I would like to turn it over to Governor Pritzker, and he gets the joy of answering all of your questions.
It will be sheer joy. Happy to take any questions from members of the media. Yes, sir.
Let's start with on topic first. Governor, the bill sealing eviction records, why is that important, and does that keep bad actors from being found by future landlords?
Well, we're not talking about bad actors. We're talking about people who've been affected by a global pandemic, people whose lives have been turned upside down. And in my view, it's unfair to put that burden upon them, that this is something that would sit on their record. The fact is that we're attempting now to make sure that people keep a roof over their heads and are able to get their lives back to some semblance of normalcy through this economic crisis that they've gone through. That's the real purpose of this bill.
So it doesn't address people who may crash the apartment or do other bad acts against the property?
Those bad acts those evictions actually have the ability to go through even now. So no, it does not affect those.
There's a lot of money here going out the door. I don't know if you or the Secretary could speak to the safeguards that might be in place to make sure that no one would abuse this program, and what would be your message to those people who might try?
I'm happy to call on the Secretary. I just want to point out to everybody, though, that the rental assistance dollars don't go into the hands of the renters directly. The renters authorize, essentially, those payments to be made to their landlords. But if you don't mind, Secretary, I don't know if yeah. Kristen may want to join as well.
Right, so our rental assistance program that is being run by both of our state agencies, we are working in partnership to make sure that the array of providers that we're working through, as well as their portal, we are capturing data around the people who are applying through our system as well as those who are applying through the portal. That's actually, there are reporting requirements that are set forth by the federal government, and we are doing everything in our control to make sure that we are complying with those rules and regulations. Do you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think we take our stewardship of these dollars very, very seriously, and we build rigor, quality control, and certain steps to ID fraud into every step of the application process. I'm not going to tell you what all those are, though, because we don't want any fraud to happen. And really, we are very optimistic that what we're going to get is a lot of people in need, renters and landlords, and that's who we'll end up being able to serve.
Federal dollars, $1.5 billion federal dollars, and how many renters and how many landlords are all being helped by this?
120,000. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So we think we'll be able to help at least 120,000 households, and actually that number could go higher.
It's a short window to apply. What happens if not all the money is spoken for?
Oh, what happens if not all the money is spoken for? Then we will probably wait a few months and open the window again and for the rest of the money. But we'll see. Let's see what happens. We think the need is pretty great.
It's a maximum of $25,000, correct? So if you don't need it, then it goes to the next one. That's what you're saying, at least 120,000 households.
Right, that's an estimate based on an estimated average.
And I should just add one other thing, if I may. Secretary Hoke could probably answer this question, but 120,000 in the rental assistance program. But remember that the utilities program and the DHS programs reach many, many more. Maybe you want to address that.
Right, so there are kind of two major parts to this program that we've announced. One is through the Illinois Housing Development Authority, which is the online program where landlords with tenants will apply for relief. But we recognize that some families prefer not to go through a portal and may need other services, such as utilities, as the governor said, case management, financial counseling, and so they can go to a neighborhood community-based organization or a faith-based organization to say, I need help. I don't know exactly what that looks like. It could also be food insecurity. And that actually, there is no window for that. We started that early on in the pandemic in being able to provide families with a wide array of services. So what we're trying to create, which is not always perfect, is kind of like a one-stop kind of human services access for families who need rental assistance and potentially legal assistance too, which is the new piece of the puzzle that we've created that starts today as well.
Governor, you've been fully vaccinated for I think about 6 weeks. Why do you still wear a mask?
So, as you know, the CDC guidelines suggest that people who are fully vaccinated in groups, indoors or outdoors, don't need to wear a mask. There's a comfort factor, I think, that all of us are going to have to adjust to. The idea, even this morning, I came out of my home, I was holding my mask, I tentatively walked out of my home without my mask on for the first time in quite some time going to work. I was holding on to my mask, I have to think about it a little more, I must admit. I also, there are times when I don't want others to feel uncomfortable. That's just a courtesy in my view. I heard the former Surgeon General on television this morning talking about his 11-year-old daughter, who's the only person in his family. He's got older children, and of course he's married as well. They're all vaccinated, so when they go out, they don't need to wear a mask, but the 11-year-old, in entering a building or sitting down somewhere in a restaurant, for example, will be wearing a mask. He didn't want her to feel uncomfortable, so he's wearing a mask. To make her feel a little bit better. So I admit, we don't have to wear them everywhere that I do, but I think that'll be an adjustment period for all of us.
Governor, going through the eviction moratorium, you said it'll end sometime in August. Do you have a specific date when you plan to
Not a specific date, but it'll be during that month, and we'll be providing more information about that as time goes on.
Many other states governors have been opting out of unemployment benefits, federal unemployment benefits, and some of your Republican opponents have been calling on you to do the same. So I was just wondering why you think it's important that Illinois State continues to offer those unemployment benefits.
I don't have any Republican opponents at the moment. I will say this, that there are a number of reasons that people are collecting unemployment at the moment and why it's important for them to continue to collect that unemployment. Some people, it isn't just, I know there's some, talk among Republicans that somehow the people who are collecting it are lazy or they don't want to work because, gee, they're getting an extra $300. The reality is there are many people who have children at home that they still need to take care of because of the circumstances of the pandemic that's put them into. There are circumstances as well where people are afraid to go back to work and they're staying out of the workforce, or at least staying, away from taking a new job. And these are people who those are legitimate reasons that people might remain on unemployment. It's a temporary time period in which they're receiving those benefits. But, we are slowly but surely, our economy is improving. We are seeing people getting hired. We had roughly about 93,000 people that were hired in the first quarter of the year. So we've made a lot of progress. And I don't want to pull the rug out from under people that have certainly legitimate reasons for remaining on unemployment.
How far Supreme Court announced today that it was going to hear an abortion case
Yes.
from Mississippi that has the potential to overturn Roe v. Wade. Your thoughts on that development, and even with the Reproductive Health Act, could Illinois explore further protections for abortion access in Illinois?
Well, I'm very proud of the fact that, and there were a number of people who were in the General Assembly voting for the Reproductive Health Act, which protects the women of Illinois, the people of Illinois, and their reproductive rights. I think the Mississippi case, the fact that the Supreme Court has taken this up, is a danger to families all across this nation. I know that here in Illinois, we will stand up for a woman's right to choose. I know we also will be vocal in protecting that right for everyone in the nation, but I'm very proud of what Illinois has accomplished to protect women's rights.
We have time for, this will be our last question. For ethics reform, how far should it go? And some are saying that there needs to be true independence for the Inspector General to investigate lawmakers, claims against lawmakers. Is that something you're looking for in a package that comes to your desk?
Well, as you know, I've been an advocate for ethics reform from before I became governor. And indeed, I think you've seen a piece of the ethics package that I've been advocating for in the energy bill that I put forward. We obviously want to address the revolving door issue, quite a number of others that I've talked about. In fact, in my February 2020 State of the State budget speech as one example, but I also mentioned it in my State of the State speech this year. So there's a package that's being put together, negotiated in the legislature. I think all of those ideas are worthy of discussion. As you know, there was also a commission that, because of COVID, wasn't able to meet a number of times, at least in person, but gathered all those ideas. So I believe that we're going to see an ethics package out of this legislature. I'm looking forward to seeing all the provisions of it. Have not yet.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.